The scent of pine needles and damp earth is my kind of cologne. Always has been. 10 acres of wild, wooded land mine since before master-planned community became some marketing buzzword. Wasn't just property. It was my peace, my home, a quiet stretch of forest where I raised my daughter, Emily, and built a life rooted in freedom, not someone else's rules. We restored the old red barn ourselves, hand-nailed every plank on the chicken coop. This land is not just dirt, it's a legacy. Emily's 16 now, but she still lights up like a little kid when she's tending the hens or walking the trails behind our house. That morning, she was checking the water trough near the coop, braids swaying down her back, humming some tune I couldn't place. Mornings like that, the sun filtering through tall firs, the soft clucking of content chickens. Those were the soundtracks of our victory. Our little rebellion against the world creeping closer every year. Then came Green Ridge Estates. 3 years ago, they popped up on the far side of the tree line like a virus. Rows of sterile, identical homes, manicured lawns, decorative lampposts. They brought more than just asphalt and concrete. They brought the HOA. And with it, Karen. I'd seen her type before. Clipboard for a sword, smile like a blade. The day she drove onto my land in her spotless black Range Rover, I was replacing a board on the porch. She stopped well short of the house, like the gravel might stain her tires. Dressed in tennis whites, no court in sight. She stepped out like she was arriving at a press conference. "David," she called out brightly, no handshake, no warmth, just a glossy folder in her outstretched hand. The Green Ridge Estates welcome and compliance packet. I didn't take it. "Karen, we've been over this. I'm not in Green Ridge Estates. Regulations evolve," she said, clipped. "For the betterment of the community." She emphasized community like it was a royal edict. She tapped the folder. "Your tool shed is non-compliant with aesthetic standards. The chickens, well, there are noise ordinances. And residents under 18 must be registered with the HOA for event access." Emily had paused, watching us from the coop, wary. I felt the slow burn start in my chest. "My daughter doesn't need your events. My chickens were here before your bylaws. My shed stays." Karen's smile cracked just slightly. "The board has adjusted the boundaries to ensure cohesion. You'll find the updated map inside." I laughed, almost. "You think drawing a line on a map gives you control of my land? You'll find non-compliance has consequences," she said, dropping the packet onto the gravel and turning sharply, her perfume hanging in the air like a threat. I picked up the packet with 2 fingers and tossed it straight into the burn barrel. But that wasn't the end. It never is with people like her. Over the next few days, things got strange. First, the chicken coop latch unhooked one morning. The hens were scattered, nervous. I brushed it off as carelessness. 2 nights later, rustling in the woods. Too heavy for a squirrel, too deliberate for a deer. I sat frozen on the porch, heart thudding, listening to the shadows shift beyond the trees. Maybe it was just raccoons. But Karen's face, the way she looked at Emily, it crept into my thoughts. I wanted to believe it was just in my head. I really did. Then came Tuesday. The sun was high, sky clear. Emily was by the tree line, filling the bird feeders. I was in the barn sorting through old hinges when I heard it. A high-pitched electric whine, growing louder. Not Jed's mower from down the road. I stepped out just in time to see a white golf cart, emblazoned with the Green Ridge logo, skid to a stop on my grass. 2 men jumped out. One tall, stocky, mirrored sunglasses and a stretched polo shirt. The other younger, twitchy. I hadn't seen either of them before. The tall one strode toward Emily, jabbing a finger. "You, what do you think you're doing? Step away from the tree line. This is HOA property." Emily jumped, startled but stood firm. "This is my father's land. You're trespassing." He didn't back down. Instead, he lunged, grabbed her arm. That's when I lost it. My world narrowed to a pinpoint the second that man grabbed Emily. His fingers clenched around her arm, his voice barking nonsense about regulations and boundaries. But all I could see was red. No one put their hands on my daughter. I was across the yard in seconds, my boots barely touching the ground, adrenaline lighting every nerve in my body like a fuse. Get your hands off my daughter. The man, Ron, I'd learn later, looked up startled. But he didn't let go. If anything, he tightened his grip. Emily winced, but I saw her hand shift. Her phone held low, screen dark, but angled just right. Recording. Good girl. She's trespassing, Ron barked back. This is HOA property. She's being detained. You're assaulting a minor on private land. I roared, stopping inches from his face. My fists were clenched so tight my knuckles throbbed. Let her go. Dad, he hurt me, Emily said, voice trembling but steady. Her eyes were wide, wet, but still sharp. That steel I'd always admired. Still there, even through the fear. The younger guy, Gary, looked like he'd seen a ghost. Ron, maybe we should just call Karen. Let her handle this. Quiet, Gary, Ron snapped, not looking away from me. But the crack in his armor was spreading. She didn't give her name, Ron snapped, trying to justify himself. We're authorized to detain suspicious persons near the boundary. She didn't even blink before you laid hands on her. I shot back. And you just blindly follow that woman's orders to grab a child? I leaned closer, my voice cold now. And just so you know, this entire thing? Recorded. Every second. Every word. That did it. Ron's eyes flicked toward Emily's phone. The arrogance drained from his face. He let go. Emily's arm bore the angry red imprint of his fingers. She stepped back quickly into my side. I put my arm around her, shielding her. Ron tried to puff up again, but it didn't land. Just stay on your side, he muttered, retreating to the golf cart like a deflated balloon. Gary scrambled after him without a word. The cart spun around, tires chewing up my grass, and buzzed back toward the green ridge border. Emily's body trembled as I pulled her into a tight hug. You okay, sweetheart? She nodded, burying her face into my shoulder. I got it all, she whispered. The whole thing, from when he started yelling. I pulled back and looked into her eyes. You did perfect. I'm proud of you. But inside me, something had changed. A hard knot twisted in my gut. This wasn't just about property lines or chickens anymore. They crossed the line. They hurt my daughter. The next morning, Karen returned without pretense, without pleasantries. Stormed right up the drive, clipboard clutched like a bayonet. David, she said sharply, I trust you've prepared an explanation for your daughter's trespassing and aggressive behavior toward HOA security. She actually sounded righteous. There will be a $250 fine assessed immediately, she added. And she is now banned from Green Ridge common areas. I said nothing at first, just stared at her. Then I glanced at Emily's arm, where the bruises had started to darken. You mean the incident where your people assaulted my 16-year-old daughter on my property? I said slow and clear. The one we have on video? Karen scoffed. Our personnel acted within designated protocol. And your protocols involve grabbing children? She produced another paper. Also, your structures and livestock remain non-compliant. Immediate rectification is required. This notice is garbage, I said, crumpling it in my hand. Your so-called boundary is a fantasy, and your security assaulted a minor. Her eyes narrowed. You really think you're untouchable out here? In your little bubble? She leaned in slightly. It's a dangerous world, David, especially for teenagers who don't respect rules. Accidents happen, especially near property lines. I froze. The implication was ice down my spine. Was that a threat against my daughter? Karen smiled. A slow, smug, venomous thing. Just an observation, she said. You do want her to stay safe, don't you? I stepped forward, voice barely more than a growl. Get off my land. She held my gaze for a second longer, then turned, walking away like she'd already won. But she hadn't. She'd just declared war. And I was done playing defense. After Karen's veiled threat, the woods felt different. Heavier, like the trees themselves were holding their breath. For a while it stayed quiet. Almost too quiet. No more run-ins. No golf carts.
No Ron.
No Gary. It was the kind of silence that doesn't bring peace, it brings tension. Like the pause before a storm. Then came the drones. At first, they were barely visible. Just small specks buzzing high above the treetops. But soon they got bolder, braver. Lower. One afternoon, I was watching Emily read outside when a drone hovered maybe 30 feet above her. Its camera tilted down. Directly at her. She didn't see it at first. But I did. My stomach turned. The hairs on my neck rose like static. It wasn't just invasive, it was sick. That night, I spotted another one. This time closer to the barn window. It hovered with a steady, deliberate motion. The red light blinked. Like it was listening. They were recording us. Watching us. And they were doing it without permission. Without restraint. Without decency. I'd had enough. I spent that night digging into FAA regulations. Altitudes. Airspace rights. Privacy laws. What I found confirmed what I already suspected. Karen and her minions were breaking more than just neighborly conduct. They were breaking federal law. Days later, it happened again. Late afternoon. Golden light pouring through the trees. Emily was inside. I was out by the garden when I heard it. The same buzzing, that ugly little whine. One of her drones. Bold as anything, it hovered right over my vegetable patch. Inside my property line. Camera whirring like a robotic eye. I didn't hesitate. I walked into the house. Opened the gun safe. Pulled out the 12 gauge. When I stepped back out, the drone was still there. Taunting me. I made sure there was nothing behind it. Just sky and trees. Then I lifted the shotgun, aimed, and pulled the trigger. The blast echoed through the forest like a cannon. The drone spasmed midair, then dropped like a stone, crashing into the tall grass in a sad little puff of plastic and sparks. I didn't feel guilty. I felt right. I unloaded the gun, leaned it against the barn, and walked over to the wreckage. It was the exact same model I'd seen buzzing around Emily. One rotor cracked clean off. The lens shattered. I picked it up in pieces. And I didn't feel like a criminal. I felt like I'd squashed a mosquito. That was the moment I drew the line in the dirt. And I knew Karen would come screaming. But I didn't expect what came next. Saturday morning. Cool fog lifting over the fields. I was sipping coffee on the porch when the convoy arrived. Karen, Ron, Gary. For others I didn't recognize, all holding clipboards and folding chairs. 2 SUVs pulled up beside her black Range Rover. They unloaded a table. They set up a full-blown tribunal. Right there at the edge of my lawn like they were preparing for a HOA barbecue from hell. They even brought lemonade. And a banner. Green Ridge Estates, Community First. I watched them with disbelief as they assembled what looked like a parody of a courtroom. One guy even had a wooden gavel. Karen marched up like royalty. David? She boomed loud enough for the birds to flee. This is your final opportunity to comply. The HOA disciplinary committee is now in session. I stayed in my chair. Calm. You're trespassing again, Karen, I said. And this is the dumbest cosplay I've ever seen. She flushed red, but pushed on. You and your offspring have repeatedly violated community standards. Animal noise, unauthorized structures, surveillance interference, and, she raised a hand for drama, unlawful discharge of a firearm within community boundaries. There it was. The drone. I stood, slowly. Emily walked out from the barn at my whistle. Calm, confident, carrying a manila folder. Karen's face twitched when she saw her. She's a juvenile. She can't be present during. She's not here to talk, I said. She's here to deliver facts. Emily handed me the folder and stood tall beside me. I opened it. Let's make this simple. I pulled out the deed. 1. This land is mine. Always has been. Not part of your HOA. Next, the boundary survey. 2. This proves you're trespassing. Then drone footage. FAA regulations. Photos of the broken drone. 3. You violated federal laws.
Surveillance.
Assault. Trespassing. And now you've staged a fake court on private land. Karen looked shaken but not broken. Not yet. We'll see what the sheriff says about your threats and firearm, she snapped. And right on cue sirens. 3 patrol cars rolled up my drive. Karen paled. Out stepped Chief Miller, Emily's godfather, and he wasn't amused. The sirens cut through the morning like a blade. 3 patrol cars rolled up my drive, gravel crunching beneath their tires. The so-called HOA tribunal froze. Ron and Gary stiffened. Karen's hand, still holding that ridiculous gavel, trembled just slightly. Out of the lead car stepped Chief Miller, Emily's godfather, a man I've hunted, camped, and shared coffee with for 20 years. He took in the scene. Folding chairs, the plastic table, that smug HOA banner waving like some tyrant's flag, and shook his head slowly, like a teacher catching a class clown mid-act. Karen stepped forward in a hurry, trying to seize control. "Officer, thank goodness you're here," she began, fake relief flooding her voice. "We were just concluding our disciplinary hearing. This man has discharged a firearm. He's threatening us." Chief Miller raised one hand. She fell silent. His eyes swept the scene, then locked on Ron and Gary. "Detain those 2, he said calmly, pointing at them. "Ron Wallace, Gary Peterson. We have video evidence of unlawful detainment and assault of a minor. Yesterday, on private property." Ron's mouth opened in protest, but no sound came out. 2 deputies stepped forward. The cuffs came out. Gary looked like he was about to pass out. Karen shrieked. "Wait! No! You can't! He's HOA security." Chief Miller turned to her slowly, his face unreadable. "Ma'am, HOA security isn't law enforcement. They have no authority to detain anyone, especially not a minor, on private land. Wearing knockoff badges and acting under color of law? That's a criminal offense." Karen's face drained of color. But he shot down my drone," she cried, pointing at me like a toddler caught lying. "You mean the drone flying illegally over private land?" Miller said flatly. "Capturing video and audio of a minor without consent?" Another officer stepped forward with a printout. "We've already reviewed the recovered footage. The FAA's been notified. There are multiple violations under federal law, including thermal imaging and unlicensed surveillance." Karen looked like she'd been punched in the gut, and she wasn't done getting hit. Chief Miller turned back to me and Emily. "You 2 all right?" I nodded. Emily gave a small smile. "Better now, Chief." He returned a nod and faced Karen once more. "This ends today. Your harassment of this family is over. You understand me?" Karen stared at him like a deer caught in headlights. "The next time my officers respond to a call involving you," he continued, "it better be because your lawyer called you, not because you staged a fake court on someone else's land." With that, the cruisers pulled away, Ron and Gary in the back seats, silent. The remaining HOA committee, scattered like leaves in the wind, chairs folding under their arms, eyes on the ground. Karen stood frozen, her little gavel now abandoned beside the table. The banner flapped behind her, "Community First," a hollow slogan from a hollow regime. You'd think that would be the end. It wasn't. People like Karen don't just fade away. They escalate. 2 days later, a sleek black luxury sedan pulled up to my gate. Out stepped a man in a tailored suit, probably worth more than everything in my barn. He didn't smile. "Mr. Wallace," he began, staying outside the gate. "My name is Mr. Sterling. I represent Green Ridge Estates in an advisory legal capacity." He slid a thick envelope through the bars like it was toxic. "You'll find within a formal notice of lien placed upon your property for outstanding violations and fines. Compliance is expected within 10 business days." His smirk told me he thought that was the final nail. I let the envelope sit in the dirt. "Tell Karen," I said slowly, "that forged maps and fake fines won't hold up in court. And if she wants a fight, I've got legal representation too." He hesitated, then turned and walked away. That night, every mailbox in Green Ridge got an anonymous letter, painting me as a menace, claiming Emily was delinquent, warning that I was a threat to property values. Old Tom down the road brought me his copy. He was furious. "We know the truth," he said. slapping the letter with the back of his hand. She's the problem. You're the one holding the line. Then came the cherry on top, a complaint to animal control. Claims of filthy conditions. Abuse. The officer walked through the coop, patted one of the hens, looked around at my clean feed bins and well-cared-for birds, and just shook his head. "Sorry to waste your time," he muttered. Karen was flailing. The fake FAA complaint. The zoning board inquiries. Even a pathetic lawsuit claiming emotional distress from my rooster statue, which, mind you, didn't even exist yet. She was throwing everything at the wall. But she didn't know who she was up against. Because when she tried to steal my truck, that was her last mistake. It was raining the night she made her final move. I'd just gotten back from town, headlights cutting through the mist as I pulled onto my property. Then I saw them, flashing yellow lights. For a split second, I thought maybe it was utility work. But no, it was a heavy-duty tow truck, hooked up to my F-150. Right there, on my private gravel driveway, halfway between the barn and the house. It wasn't just trespassing. It was theft. I slammed the brakes, jumped out of the car, rain soaking my flannel and plastering my hair to my skull. "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?" The tow truck driver, a stocky guy in a rain slicker, looked up, startled but not aggressive. "Got an order from Green Ridge HOA. Said this vehicle's parked illegally overnight on HOA common property. Gotta haul it." I stared at him, then gestured around. "Buddy, this is my driveway. This isn't HOA land. It never was." He scratched the back of his neck, suddenly less sure. "Lady named Karen showed me a map. Said it was updated. Said this stretch here." He pointed vaguely toward my house. "Is included now. Said you were a repeat violator." That did it. I didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't threaten. Instead, I walked calmly back to my car, dialed my cousin Maddie. She's not just family, she's a legal sledgehammer. And she hates bullies. I explained what was happening. The drone, the tribunal, the forged map, the truck. There was a pause. Then a low, dangerous laugh from the other end of the line. "Oh, Karen," Maddie said. "She really doesn't know who she's messing with." The next morning, Maddie filed an emergency injunction, personally naming Karen and the Green Ridge HOA. The charges: unlawful interference with private property, attempted theft, and a clear, escalating pattern of harassment. The judge didn't hesitate. He granted it within hours. The cease and desist was brutal. It barred Karen and the HOA from initiating any contact, surveillance, or enforcement against me or Emily. It also came with teeth. Violations meant immediate criminal charges. Maddie didn't stop there. She dug deep, found documents Karen had pressured neighbors to retract, found the zoning variance from 30 years ago Karen planned to use, and preemptively obliterated it in a legal brief so airtight it might as well have come shrink-wrapped. Karen didn't just lose ground. She lost the whole war. When I showed the court order to the tow company manager, he looked like he'd swallowed a golf ball. She said she had ID. "It looked kind of real," he mumbled. "Now that I think about it, it was laminated paper. My truck was returned the same day, clean, undamaged, and accompanied by a written apology, plus a still image from their security camera. There she was, Karen, arms crossed, standing by, watching them tow my vehicle off my land. We sent the image straight to the county prosecutor. Then the FAA report landed. Illegal drone flights confirmed. Multiple devices. Unauthorized audio and thermal imaging. Footage of minors, Emily, without consent. The fines were massive. But worse for Karen, the report recommended a criminal review. Federal charges were now on the table. And as for her last-ditch countersuit, something about emotional damage from neighborhood hostility, the judge dismissed it with prejudice, meaning she couldn't file again, ever. He even ordered her to pay all of my legal fees. The final blow? The Green Ridge HOA imploded. Once the lawsuits, fines, and reputational damage started piling up, the board members abandoned ship. They voted to dissolve the HOA entirely. The clubhouse? Sold. The golf carts? Auctioned. The entrance sign? replaced with a handmade wooden one that read, "Welcome to Green Ridge, now 100% Karen-free." Karen put her house on the market within a week. No takers for months. Everyone in town knew the story. They called it the Karen house. Eventually, she sold it at a steep loss to a couple from out of state who found the whole thing hilarious. But even then, she had to get in one last petty jab. A can of red spray paint scrawled nonsense across my fence. But my security cam caught her Range Rover creeping away in the dark. Maddie handed it over to the police. Karen got one final gift before skipping town. A court summons for vandalism, and a restraining order barring her from ever stepping foot near my land again. And just like that, she was gone. And life returned. Sunlight through the trees, the soft peck of hens, steak on the grill.
No drones. No threats. No HOA.
Emily thrived. Neighbors started stopping by. Folks I barely knew before, just to shake my hand. Some brought muffins. One brought a bottle of whiskey. They called me a hero. I didn't think I was one. I was just a dad, standing my ground. But I did think something was missing, a fitting monument to everything we'd survived. So I called an old friend who did wood carvings. Weeks later, we installed it right on the edge of my property, facing the road and Karen's old driveway. A 12-foot-tall rooster, carved from red cedar. Wings flared, beak open mid-crow. At its base, a bronze plaque, Cluck Norris, in loving memory of HOA tyranny. May it drone in peace. He's still standing there, guarding our land. And every time I walk past him, I smile, because sometimes you have to fight back. And sometimes, the rooster wins.